Hello, everyone. Welcome to VRIC Media, your most trusted voice in metals and mining. I'm your host, Darrell Thomas, and today we have the pleasure of interviewing Bill Holter. So, obviously, got to start with the metals. Gold and silver have been under some pressure as far as the price measured in dollars. Just curious in your thoughts on the recent price action in gold and silver.
Well, we were certainly due a correction, not the correction in silver. I don't think a 50% drop was warranted, but we were definitely due a correction at the end of January. Uh, if you look at a chart of the CRB, and that's all commodities, that is in the process of breaking higher. And you've got basically the powers that be are trying to tamp the prices down. Basically, all of these are fractional reserve. There's more contracts outstanding than there is actual product. Um, so they really don't want to let commodities run wild to the upside. Um, so they're trying to stop that process, but ultimately it's not going to work. I mean, you can suppress something, but you can't suppress it forever.
For sure. So, when we're thinking of this deliberate attempt to suppress the metals, um, I'm curious in like what's usually your, you know, advice or, kind of your wisdom that you give people when people are concerned about the price movements, but you know that there's powers that are here, with more contracts than physical supply, and they're, playing with, I guess, the wealth of people, and some people view, gold and silver in measured in dollars, and that's just how they view it. So curious in your thoughts of what kind of wisdom do you give those stackers or those investors that pay attention to that?
Well, first off, that's backwards, measuring gold and silver in dollars. Dollars are measured in gold and silver. I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the century, uh, the dollar was 1/300th of an ounce of gold. Now it's 1/4500th of an ounce of gold. That's the way to truly look at the measurement. I would just say, and I've said this for years, if you know that there's nefarious, then you trade against it because ultimately they lose. I mean, what they're doing is they're trying to defy supply and demand. And we know for silver, for instance, has been in a structural deficit for at least 5 years. And in the end, supply and demand wins. I mean, the same thing could have been said back in 2016, 17, 18, when silver was what? 15, $18 an ounce. Oh, I'm not going to invest in silver because, it's being suppressed. Well, that's a reason to purchase it because if something's being suppressed, you're buying it artificially low.
Okay, gotcha. So, China recently imported a huge amount of silver. I was looking at the chart that's been going around, stating that they've imported, near record amounts of silver and such. What do you think the reason is behind that?
So, the Chinese are purposely trying to tighten the silver market because silver will spill over to gold, and gold is the weapon of paper financial destruction, if you will. If we get the 10, 15, 25,000 or more gold, that is a complete vote of no confidence in the West paper.
There's been some major headlines on, Financial Times and some other major headlines which we've been aware of this, but gold has surpassed treasuries as the reserve asset by
Right.
many nations. So is this like the end of the dollar system? Like, just curious in your thoughts on how are you viewing that?
Well, the system is obviously going to change. And it's going to change because the BRICS have come out and said they want to create a currency that has real backing by commodities. And they're talking about using 20 to 40% backing by gold. And obviously silver would be in there, other commodities, other metals, the oil complex. Um, so they want a real currency because nowhere in the West, and really nowhere in the world right now, uh, since 1971 has there been a real currency with real settlement.
Gotcha. So, what's kind of the update with the BRICS? Is there? I mean, obviously they have these big macro plans and such, but just curious. And I haven't been hearing their names as much or whatnot. I
Right.
know that some of them move in silence or whatnot. Just curious in what you've been seeing there.
The big things they want to move in silence. But yeah, they've gone somewhat quiet for the last 6 months. I remember this time last year, all the talk was about the BRICS, and now you rarely hear anything about that. But that doesn't mean they stopped. And understand, again, the Chinese are very smart people. They can just sit back and wait for the West to implode. From a mathematical standpoint, from a standpoint of the U.S. shoots its foot continually in the area of confidence. I mean, who wants to do business with a business partner but steals from you?
Inflation's been ticking up. Where do you see inflation going in the eroding of the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar with the recent moves?
Oh, that's a math question. It's very simple. The price of gold uh, goes up because the value of the currency goes down, and the currency, by definition, has to go down because I mean, think about it. We're paying $5 billion a day in interest. The debt can't be paid. So there's going to be more and more and more debt, which means there's got to be more and more and more money supply. If you have a pie and you cut it into two pieces, you cut it once, it's two pieces. You cut it again, it's four. You keep cutting the pieces or you keep slicing it, and each piece gets the value is less and less and less, or the size is less and less. And think of the pool of dollars as a pie. Gold and silver don't go up or down. What goes up or down are the currencies.
It seems like we're past the point of no return, especially, national debt's approaching 40 trillion. I mean, you got over 100 trillion in off balance sheet liabilities. It seems like there was kind of like some optimism when President Trump came in about, you know, cutting the deficits and, moving more towards a balanced budget and such. But it seems like we're past that point of no return. Like this is the
It
first time
can't be
this,
done.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it can't be done. They can't balance the budget. I mean, if they balance the budget, let's let's go back to 1960. I think there was one year with some smoke and mirrors at the end of Bill Clinton's term, where the deficit was actually a surplus of something like $19 billion for a year. But every single year since 1960, there's been a deficit. Now, understand that if you try to balance the budget now, it's an impossibility because you throw the system into a complete depression. You wipe out the cash flow, in other words, and then the debt can't be paid. And then what do you have? Then you have a complete implosion of credit markets.
Okay, so how high do you think gold and silver could go measured in dollars? I mean, I'm hearing $200 silver, $500 silver. I'm hearing $20,000 gold, $15,000 gold, and such. Many different price targets out there, but I just kind of thinking about, well, in that world, the dollar's going to be devalued significantly against the metals, and so that's going to impact other areas of life and such, and I imagine just real assets will continue to move higher. So curious on your thoughts on like the kind of like your future projection of where can this go?
Let me start by saying any number that you hear, when all is said and done, will be laughably low. The question is, how devalued do the currencies become? And ultimately, they're intrinsically worth zero. I mean, you've got treasuries that are issued by a bankrupt entity. So do they go to zero? If they go to zero, then a cup of coffee is infinity, meaning you can't buy a cup of coffee with dollars.
I keep seeing this chart with the German mark where there's a lot of volatility with I think it was the Reich mark during Germany's
Right.
financial collapse. and gold was very volatile during the time. Is are you expecting there to be like more volatility as this plays out?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we just went through, November through January. Look at the volatility there. That volatility is going to increase from there. It'll increase again. It'll increase again. It does have to do with confidence in that currency, and a break in confidence. What'll end up happening is no one will sell any gold. No one will sell any silver for dollars. You won't be able to buy metal in dollars. You'll have to use it. Sellers will only sell to accept a currency that they have confidence in. If there's no confidence in a currency, that you're not going to be able to buy any metal, any amount, small amount, big amount, it won't matter in a currency that's not trusted.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, like I still buy gold and silver. I have been slowing down on some purchases a little bit. Um, but the saying that we don't own enough hard assets keeps coming to mind, and thinking of this future where the dollar is going to be devalued significantly. I've been kind of just thinking about is the best play to just keep exchanging like dollars fiat for metals. I mean, and make that a lifestyle.
Well, yeah, the time to buy metal is when you have the capital to do it. I mean, you shouldn't even try to time it. Just buy whenever you have, because long term, if you're looking to, we know what the end game is.
Yeah.
How we get to the end game, I can't tell you. But if you know what the end game is, you know that gold and silver are real money that cannot bankrupt, they cannot default in a world that's going to go through a massive default all the way around the globe.
So also in that world, I imagine like people need to be prepared for other scenarios. I mean, thinking about, what type of chaos, what type of civil unrest, things of that nature. I mean, I even think about the danger of populism, as when people's social security I mean, they
Right.
get cost of living adjustments or whatever the case may be, or maybe it doesn't get paid out at some point. I can only imagine a world where there's going to be chaos and a lot of, aggression and violence, such. And so, what should people be thinking about on that level?
Well, first off, go back 20 years. That's what, 2006. In 2006, if you got to see uh, the news today, it would have blown people's minds, because supposedly we're still in good times. And look at all the violence. Look at how messed up everything is during good times. When things go bad, people's thought process today is totally different than what it was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you were taught to be self-reliant. Now people are taught, live off the state, get unemployment, get EBT. They owe it to you. People believe that they're entitled, and that's going to add to the chaos, as you call it. And understand that, again, the entire system runs on credit. Once credit stops, think about gasoline. How many uses of credit are there to get gasoline into a pump that you get to use? And most people use either a credit card or a debit card. Um, when credit stops, everything stops. Will a municipality be able to pay their EMS people or police if there's no credit? I mean, if you dial 911, what are you going to get? You're going to get a recording, or are you going to get a real person and then send somebody out? I've talked to many uh, different police officers and asked them, if the banks were to fail, when the system goes down, what are you going to do? And 95% of them have told me, I'll be home with my family protecting them. So understand that the financial system affects the real world.
Yeah, for sure. So, what can we learn from history in these being in this part of a cycle? Some people view this as a cycle or whatnot. What can we learn from history, and um, I mean, obviously, owning metals is important, but there seems to be like you have to think about safety. You got to think about many other things. What are some other things we can learn from history in times like this?
For the United States, we're beyond any and all history. We're beyond, where things were in 1929 by far because of the amount of leverage. But yeah, you can look at Weimar Germany, you can look at Argentina, Zimbabwe. I mean, you can look at those. This was years ago, and I forget where they were. I think it had to do with a war situation. I think it was Serbia. It lasted 12 months or a little bit longer. And I remember the one thing that stuck out in my head was guys said he would have killed for a tube of toothpaste because they couldn't get toothpaste. I mean, just the simple, mundane things that of your life that you take for granted, may or may not be there. And simple things, speaking of simple things, how about flipping a light switch? Is your electric company going to be able to run without credit? I suggest no, they won't. So do you have an alternate power source? Do you have a source to clean water? People need to prepare from the standpoint of, okay, I'm going to go it alone for a month or 2 months. The knowledge of how to survive is no longer there. Back in the 1930s, people knew how to hunt. They knew how to fish. They knew how to farm. 90% of Americans back then had some type of vegetables growing. How many people have vegetables, growing now? I would say probably certainly less than 10% of the population. So, things are so different now. The most important thing is the knowledge on how to survive is no longer there.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of going on a backpacking trip with some friends last year. It was my first time going up in the woods, hiking up. I think we hiked up about 8, 9 miles, stayed overnight and such. And yeah, I have a lot to learn as we move forward throughout this year. How are you processing the war in Iran? How do you think this plays out? Do you have a view on that?
I don't. I said this from the very beginning. This is very, very bad for the U.S. Not only is it, costing us money, we're exposing what we can and what we can't do, and confidence in the U.S. is dropping. And confidence is the only thing that credit runs on, and the U.S. clearly runs on credit. We're running a deficit of a 1.5 to 2 trillion per year.
Okay, yeah, appreciate you sharing that and everything. Well, Bill, always grateful for your time and everything and coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, your insights with the audience. Where can people, follow some of your work? Or, obviously you're appearing on different podcasts and such. Good friends with Andy Scheckman, who's a good friend of the show, and such. And so, where can people, read more of what you're up to?
You can go to my website. I post things pretty much every day. A couple of tabs up top. One is called Grizzly's Corner. If you're looking to prep, this was written and put together by a guy that has the ability to go into the Idaho hills with a pack of mules for 6 months at a time and come out, smelling like a rose. So there's a lot of good information there.
All righty. Well, audience, you have it there. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. Love to have your support. And Bill, thank you for your time.